Thank you. Before I start the presentation, let me welcome and appreciate the presence of Senate President, the Speaker, House of Representatives, Honorable Attorney General of the Federation, members of National Assembly, my competent board members, and other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I will start by first of all disagreeing with the Registrar General of CAC that there is not going to be a reconciliation after this ceremony. Maybe after my presentation, you will discover that the first person to pay arrears of this, the stamp duty due to federal government is Federal Inland Revenue. We have a corporate head office that we are constructing. About 39 billion was paid for that project before I came on board. I've asked the Finance and Account Department how much stamp duty has the contractor paid on the project. So what I'm saying here is that the charity of this business is going to begin from Federal Inland Revenue. By tomorrow, about 39 million that is due or payable as stamp duty to stamp duty account. The finance director is uncomfortable. You have no option than to pay it tomorrow, because if you don't do that, nobody else will do. As a result of that, including the Office of Attorney General of the Federation and the Corporate Affairs Commission, consultants shall be sent in for contracts that you have embarked upon, which stamp duty was not deducted. I will spare National Assembly, because if I don't do that, there will be problem in the land. I think I will just go straight to the background, which is about the fourth page, which has been highlighted by Attorney General, that the stamp duty is not a thing of now. Stamp duty does not belong to Federal Inland Revenue. Stamp duty is not the issue of Nigeria Postal Service. Stamp duty is an issue of Federation account, and that has been the issue since Ordinance 41 of 1939. Outside that, there were subsequent amendments in 1942, some other amendments in 1947, there are amendments in 1957. Then comes the consolidation, which is now popularly referred to as Stamp Duties Act Cap 6 S8 LFN 2004 as amended. The Finance Act 2 has also put to rest a lot of things, particularly the fact that this is tax payable to Federation account. And for that ambiguity to be removed, it substituted the word Federal Government of Nigeria and replaced them with Federal Inland Revenue Service. So what we are doing here is not a playing matter. We are not here to joke. We will follow everybody, including the company I once worked, and to ensure that every bit of 1 naira that is payable by contractor or service providers to Nigerian government is remitted without further delay. We can equally move to the next slide, which is about the fact that it used to be the stamp duty was before now chargeable on only fiscal instrument. with Finance Act, it has now been expanded to cover even electronic instrument. What is stamp duty? Stamp duty, as defined by Section 2 of the Stamp Duties Act, is an impressed pattern or mark by means of an engraved or ink block die as an adhesive stamp or an electronic stamp or an electronic acknowledgement for denoting any duty or fee. As the world continues to be global in its activities and with the challenge of COVID-19, our ability to interact has further been limited. So what we do mostly now is electronic payment, and that is why we are talking to the money deposit banks that I have not gone to the bank for the past 6 years and 6 months, and I continue to spend money. And for each transfer I have done to my wife, and for each transfer I have done to my sister, and for each transfer I have done to my children in the school, 50 naira was deducted. There are two journals that ought to be raised at that point. The first one, you debit me and credit the school probably that I pay school fees to. The second journal, you debit me against stamp duty, but we don't normally receive the credit in the stamp duty account. That is the essence of this launch. So we are going to come after this. The Finance Act 2019 has led to rest some of the controversies in the Stamp Duty Act before now, and one of it is the ambiguities as to parties responsible for the imposition of stamp duty in Nigeria. The second one is with the Finance Act passed into law by National Assembly and signed into law by Mr. President. FRA is the sole competent tax authority to assess, collect, and account for stamp duty in Nigeria going forward. Stamp duty has been properly defined based on the explanations I've made before, and the fact that a stamp duty could take the form of an engraved, inked, block die, an electronic stamp, or electronic acknowledgement for denoting any duty or fee. The Schedule to Stamp Duties Act contains a list of chargeable and exempted items. If you move to the next slide, you will find out that the chargeable transactions were classified by the Act into two: fixed duty instrument and ad valorem instrument. So part of the fixed duty instrument is power of attorney, certificate of occupancy, proxy forms, appointment of receivers, memorandum of understanding is executed between two parties, joint venture agreements, guarantors form, ordinary agreements, and receipts. On the other hand, you have deed of assignment, sales agreement, legal mortgage or debentures, tenancy or lease agreement, insurance policies, contract agreement, vending agreement, promissory note, charity party, and contract note, etc. The stamp duty administration is by Federal Land Revenue and the state. Their functions are to assess, collect, and account for taxes, the stamp duty collected by them, by the stamp duty commissioners that we appoint per state, and the Internal Revenue Service of the state. Relevant taxing authority, like I've explained, the relevant tax authority in line with Section 41, as far as for the federal government is Federal Inland Revenue, and Section 4, subsection 2, gives stamp duty administration in the state to internal revenue services of that particular state. Previously, please note that the FRS collected stamp duties on instruments executed by an individual resident in Federal Capital Territory, but with This has stopped as a result of the creation of Internal Revenue Service for FCT. Another key thing we want to draw the attention of this gathering to is the total stamp duty collection in the year 2019, which stood at 18 billion. Total collection by FRS from January to June, that is as at yesterday, is as follows. We have collected and remitted for money deposit bank in this year alone, 20 billion naira. Stamp duties revenue from stamping of instrument at CAC, like the Registrar General has said, we have realized about 7.9 billion. Amount hitherto warehouse with CBN now remitted to Federation account as at the point I was appointed stood at 39 billion. So total stamp duty remitted into Federation account from January 2020 to May, or precisely to say to June, as at yesterday, stood at 66 billion. This was made possible because of three key reasons. The Finance Act that National Assembly gave us, sums were housed by CBN in respect of prior years, the technology we have deployed, and more importantly, the collaboration with the stakeholders, e.g. CAC and National Assembly, etc. The collection performance of stamp duty hitherto witness is a tip of the iceberg compared to its potentials. The amendment and effective implementation of the Stamp Duty Act simplify administration process plus the audit and recovery exercise will raise the revenue bar for the government significantly. The dependence of postage stamp for denoting stamp duty is one of the factors accounting for low collection of performance in the past. The introduction of stamp duties at the exit stamp will, among others, plug the revenue leakages, enable proper accountability and transparency, simplify administration of stamp duties, and reduce dispute. FRS is prepared to reposition stamp duties as next major revenue source for Nigeria. As revenue from oil and gas continues to dwindle due to global fall in demand and price of petroleum product, indirect taxes such as stamp duty remain the viable and sustainable alternative revenue source for funding budgetary requirements by the Nigerian government. Let us use this gathering as partners and stakeholders in the development of our dear country to refocus our efforts on developing a tax system that works for all of us. On behalf of the Federal Inland Revenue Board, management and staff, I register my sincere appreciation to the leadership of National Assembly for their support and encouragement to the service. My special thanks goes to the Honorable Minister of Justice and Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning for always being there for us when we need them. The FRS is open to engagement with all stakeholders for the purpose of repositioning the tax system for the benefit of our country. We therefore invite all and sundry to come join hands with us in the task of building a viral tax system that will be a pride to all of us. Let me leave with us the words of a former American president who said, and I quote, "In this world, nothing can be said to be certain. We already know that we have come to this world, but the next thing that is certain is death. And another one is taxes." Always remember, therefore, that for us to fund the huge budgetary deficit of about 5 trillion, for the government to be able to provide social amenities to our citizens, for the government to be able to fund key infrastructure requirements, it cannot only be better because it pays to pay your taxes. Thank you so much. you.